So Jonathan, just to kick us off here, I think one of the things that we're trying to explore is when we out here in Asia and across the region, we are seeing probably the most explosive sort of 16 to 20 months in both the telecom space and the data center space from a demand perspective. I mean, is that a global trend, or is that an Asian trend, or is it a COVID trend, or do you think COVID is only a small portion of that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a global trend, and I kind of think of the industry as being in two parts. You've got China, and then you've got the rest of Asia Pac, Europe, Americas. The technology trends are pretty much the same, but the logos are a little bit different, inside of China and just around China. But elsewhere, you find it's very much West Coast-based technology companies that are driving a lot of the leasing, that are doing a lot of the building globally, and that's taking place across APAC, Americas, EMEA. I don't feel like this industry really was affected by COVID all that much. At the edges, there were some delays in delivery. There might have been a little bit of panic buying in parts of the market. In some cases, there were some pauses in decision cycles among enterprises. But I think what stands out is how really decoupled data center demand has been in the face of the macro around COVID. And then, going back earlier to the global financial crisis in '08 and '09, similar story. Deep economic distress that the world was seeing, but data centers continue to grow based on very strong secular drivers.
What's the key drivers? I mean, I think are you seeing it on a global scale, or is it U.S.? What's driving the growth? Or are you seeing it specifically in one market or another, or is it you think it's around the world?
I think it's around the world, but I mean, we've seen a big pickup in EMEA. In the first quarter, we had more business outside the U.S. than inside the U.S. And Europe was by far and away our largest region. Asia was second largest, and then U.S. and LATAM was quite strong too. So it's very, very strong. I think probably the one market in the U.S. is probably a little bit oversupplied is Northern Virginia. So the pricing's weaker there. But fortunately, we're in a lot of other markets around the world where pricing is quite strong. Where our global expansion is customer led. So a number of our very large customers have asked us to go to new markets, new and emerging markets, and that's why we've made the decision we've made, because we discern demand, whether it's from one customer or ideally multiple customers that will be taking up a considerable amount of power and space. Look, Bill, we've seen a continuation into the year. So our first quarter was very strong, and would expect that second quarter will be strong as well. So we see no signs that this trend will abate anytime soon.
Data centers are trading at 20 times EBITDA, and meanwhile the fiber guys are still, if they're lucky, trading at 7 or 8. Why is that? I mean, it seems like it's a heck of a lot more complicated to build a fiber network than it is to build a data center. But for some reason, the data centers trade at a much higher multiple. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think multiples are, in this era of zero interest rate, I think all multiples have lifted somewhat. I think that the demand that has been insatiable for this past 6-7 years for data center capacity as applications have moved to the cloud. I think that has driven the multiple expansion in data centers. Will that continue? I think if you ask folks at the end of the 90s whether data center multiples would continue, they deflated pretty rapidly in the early 2000s. Will they deflate like that again? I don't think so. But as more bandwidth comes to the edge through wireless, I think the multiples for fiber will increase. I think that the demand for fiber will continue to grow apace, and I believe that those multiples have more expansion opportunity than data center. So if you're looking for value plays, I think fiber is a better place to be at this stage.
I think there's multiple paths to success, and the different segments of the market each have some opportunities. And the other thing is that when you're talking about the amount of capital coming into this space, you can't create an interconnect type asset from scratch, right? A lot of these exist for historical reasons because of how the internet developed in a given country or a given city, where the fiber routes got deployed. Often these are central business districts, and there's just no more opportunity to grow there. So the volume of capital coupled with return thresholds make suburban and even further out, edge of town sites perfectly attractive from an investment standpoint.
Doing the data center thing versus the fiber side. The data center thing feels a lot easier than the fiber side. To be quite honest, it's constructing buildings a lot easier than putting glass on seabeds.
Certainly more predictable, but I have to be honest. I'm sure every industry is hard in its own way, and it's easy to see where it's hard in your own industry. But for the most part, when it comes to operationally, if you think of what collectively the industry has done over the last 20 years, we've changed the world, right? This is suppliers, customers, suppliers to us, regulators, all of us collectively. If you imagine what would have happened with COVID if we didn't have this infrastructure. So what we do is hard. We certainly, as a supplier, think we should get paid more and valued more, but I think every company thinks that. But at the end of the job, we can look back and we've kind of changed the world here in a positive way in most cases.